Good morning. My name is Aryan Singh Rana, and in today's video, I'll be solving a LeetCode question with the number 3028 and on a boundary. Now, this question was recently asked in one of the LeetCode's contest, and it is of easy difficulty level. The question states that an ant is on the boundary. It sometimes goes left and sometimes goes right. You are given an array of non-zero integers, nums. Okay, so nums cannot contain a zero number inside of it. The ant starts reading the nums array from the first element of it to its end. So basically, the ant is reading from the first to last. At each step, it moves according to the value of the current element. Okay, and if num at ith index is less than zero, it means that if the value at the index in the nums is less than zero, then it moves left by that value units. And if it is greater than zero, which means that the number is positive, then it would move right by the element that is present over there in the right direction. Now we have to return the number of times the ant returns on the boundary. Okay, so if the ant goes left and if it returns on the boundary, then we have to return how many times the ant is returning to the boundary after each movement. Okay, so the note that we have been given is there is that there is an infinite space between both boundaries. Okay, so we have a boundary and there is infinite space on both left and right side. We check whether the ant is on the boundary only after it has moved num I units. In other words, if the ant crosses the boundary during its movement, it does not count. Okay, so it is simply stating that we do not need to count the number of times the ant crosses the brown boundary. For example, if the ant is 3 units towards the left from the boundary and it moves 4 units towards the right, then as we know, if it moves 4 units towards right, then it will cross boundary one times and we won't count that because it is not on the boundary. It is simply crossing the boundary. We need only to count those number of times when after the movement is done, and after the movement is done, the ant is on the boundary, not on the left or right side of the boundary. Then we need to simply return that number. Okay, so in this example, as we can see that the num array contains 2, 3, and minus 5. So the output is 1 over here. The explanation for it simply that the first unit is 2 and the second unit is 3, so both of them are positive, so ant would move right side toward right side of the boundary. So now at the third iteration, the ant is currently on the 5 is currently 5 units away from the boundary, but now the third unit says move left because it is a negative number, so we need to move left side, and which is of 5 units. So if the ant is 5 units away towards the right side of the boundary and it moves 5 units towards the left side, then as we know that it will reach on the boundary, and that's why the output is 1 over here. Now coming to this second example over here, we can see that first ant move 3 units left side, then again 2 units left side. Now the current position of the ant is 5 units to the right side of the boundary, and then ant moves 3 units to the left side and 4 units to the left side. So now, as we know that the current sum of the both these negative numbers is 7, which is greater than 5. So ant would be 2 units left towards left side of the boundary, not on the boundary. It means that it would have crossed boundary one time from coming towards from the right side of the boundary to the left side of the boundary, but it shows count 0 because ant did not stop after the movement and did not stop any time on the boundary. It simply crossed it. Now this it is a pretty simple code. As we can see that I first initialize the counter variable over here to count the number of times the ant reaches the boundary after its movement, not during its movement. And as we know, this is the temp variable I created to see if I will do calculation in the temp variable. Now I have simply ran a for each loop. As we can see that I've initiated a for each loop with the loop variable n, and it would iterate through all the elements of num. And as you can see that I'm simply adding the temp to the n only. Now what is happening over here? I'm adding each and every element to the temp over here, and I'm simply checking if at each and every step after each and every addition, if temp is equal to 0. Now, why is that? Because as we know, for if a person moves x unit forward and wants to return to the initial position, then it needs to come x unit backwards as well. So what we are doing, simply minusing the distance, and we will get 0 for it to reach to the initial point. That's why I'm simply checking if after each and every movement, at any moment of the time, to remember after every movement. That's why I've done the calculation, then I'm checking for it, not before it. So after the calculation is done, I am simply checking if it is 0. It means that if the ant reached the boundary of the after the previous movement or not. If it reached the boundary, then I am simply incrementing the counter for it, which is this command would simply increment the counter value by 1. And after the whole iteration, I am simply returning the count outside the function. Well, that's all. Now I'm simply running the code to test my all test cases. As you can see, all the test cases have been passed. Now I'm submitting the code. As you can see, the total runtime was 0 milliseconds, and it beats 100% of the Java users. Now, coming to the time complexity of this code, the time complexity of this code would be O of n representing the length of the array. Why is that? Because the time complexity is completely dominated by the number of iterations the loop is taking. And the loop is taking only a fixed number of iterations, which is the total length of the nums array. So in turn, we can simply say that the loop will only run n times, and represents the number of length of the whole array. That's why it is of order of n. Well, that's all for this solution, and thank you for watching.